All right, so we're switching gears now to football on the SportsMax Zone. CONCACAF has announced the 2023-24 shortlist for both the Women's and Men's Player of the Year awards. The awards, which will be voted upon until August 2, feature a Jamaican on both the women's and men's side. Let's have a full look at the nominees. All right, so for the Women's Player of the Year nominations, we have Charlene Coral, Melchie Dumornay, Adriana Leon, Jacqueline Overly, Khadija Shaw, and Sophia Smith. What about for the Men's Player of the Year nominations? Leon Bailey, Adalberto Carrasquilla, Jonathan David, Alfonso Davies, Santiago Jimenez, and Christian Pulisic. Well, Khadija is the only Jamaican to ever win the award, winning the prize in 2022, while this is Leon Bailey's first nomination. With us in studio to break down the chances of either player to be crowned as CONCACAF's best player is our football analyst, Leger Williams. Lish, it's been a while. How are you?
I'm pretty all right, I'm here, I'm enjoying life.
He's getting ready for Arsenal's season.
Yeah, I watched your first preseason game yesterday, actually.
Okay. Was it good? I missed it.
Yeah, it was a pretty all right game, Preseason is for fitness, nothing much more,
Yeah, well, we're not going to talk about Arsenal in this discussion at all, because we're talking about a Man City women's player, Khadija Bonny Shaw, and the man from Aston Villa, and just the different nominations, Lish. So we're going to take a close look now at the women's aspect. Khadija has won this award before. How positive are you that she can cup this one again back-to-back?
I'm actually pretty positive. This one seems like a bit of a showing for me, because of the fact that she won it in 2022, and then when you look over 2023-2024 season, she was even better. She improved in terms of winning the WSL Player of the Season award, winning the Golden Boot again, and even becoming a Ballon d'Or nominee. So I think Khadija Shaw really had an exceptional season for Manchester City, and I think this one's much easier to pick than the men's side. I would say maybe Sophia Smith would be her
rival.
Yeah, her closest rival, because she's a player that has been coming up a lot for the US, and she's been putting in some big performances. She's the latest in the long lineage of what you would call USA's history of producing a lot of formidable attacking players. When you think about maybe a Carly Lloyd, a Abby Wambach, Alex Morgan as well. So she's the next in that lineage. But I think when it comes down to overall quality, the overall season, based on the criteria that they're picking this off of, I think it's pretty clear to see that Khadija Shaw, as even said on the CONCACAF website itself, she is the overwhelming favorite.
Yeah, 25 matches, 22 goals, 5 assists. I was reading an article where they even went to the extent to say that Manchester City missed out on winning the title because Khadija Bonny Shaw was absent because of her injury. Of course, that's no secret. She had a nasty injury that ended her season prematurely. Do you agree with that narrative?
Yeah, I completely agree. And you can see how much they feel that that injury impacted their season, because they went out, and I know you said that we weren't going to talk about Arsenal, but I have to show in a bit of Arsenal women's player, one of the better women's players of this generation, Vivian Miedema, unfortunately made her leap from the Gunners to Manchester City women. So I think that's just them strengthening their firepower, and that's going to shore up that even if Bonny is unavailable, Manchester City will still be firing on all cylinders, and they're certainly favourites in my eyes now to go on alongside Chelsea, to go on and win the WSL, just like how Khadija Shaw is a favourite to win this CONCACAF Women's Player of the Year award again.
Yeah, and are you okay with the criteria? Because many a times there are awards given out, and most people, looking on, just the average football fan or even journalists looking on, most times they're not very pleased with the manner in which these athletes are selected. Overall, the criteria, they feel it's a bit biased. You, Lish, based on what you know about the criteria, are you good with it, or are there areas you feel can be improved?
I'm pretty okay with it. I think the weight, I think it's not necessarily usually the criteria itself, it's how it's weighted, because even when you look at other Player of the Year awards, especially something like the Ballon d'Or, the criteria is there for all to see, but then if it's something like a tournament here like this year, it's weighted differently for someone who maybe wasn't the best player over the club season, and then because they won the tournament, then they're given the award. Probably something that we're going to see with another Manchester City player, Rodri, winning the Ballon d'Or this season, I would assume. So I'm okay with the criteria, them weighting the international exploits and the club exploits evenly, they say. But I think either way you slice it, on the women's side, it's pretty easy in my estimation.
Yeah, but fans vote as well, so it's not...
Yeah, it's open, actually.
Yeah, it's not an expert panel by itself that will just sit down and make these decisions. How much do you think people weigh international performances against your club performances? Because there's the Haitian 20-year-old Melchie Dumornay, really, really impressive. She's like a standout for Haiti whenever she puts on the Haiti shirt, and she has impressed a lot of people globally.
Yeah, I think it weighs a lot, but I think it's when.
If it's a tournament year, like a World Cup.
If it's a tournament year, a Gold Cup year, because when we go on to the men's side of things, you'll see Carrasquilla in there. Many people, although I think he's a fantastic player, many people wouldn't have him as a top 6 best player in CONCACAF, but because of his exploits at the Gold Cup, that's what really got him in there. And I do think that it weighs a lot what you do in a tournament, because that's seen as the pinnacle of football, the Champions League, the Euros, the Copa America, the World Cup, obviously. So what you do for your country means a lot, but it's when you do it that means even more.
Yeah, well, the Canadians achieved some history recently. Alphonso Davies was last year's CONCACAF Player of the Year. He's going to be one of the names that Leon Bailey will come up against. Well, we've established that Khadija Shaw is a heavy favorite for the women's award, but who is the favorite for the men?
I'm actually not sure, Sir Lance, to be very honest. I do think that this is a pretty tight one, because when you look at the criteria, look at what each player is bringing forward, I think there's a lot of interpretation to be given. I think Alphonso Davies, who you said won last year, he won the year before that as well. 2-time straight he has won the trophy, or won the prize for Player of the Year in CONCACAF. I think club-wise, he hasn't had the greatest season. I think international-wise, he hasn't been at his best either. But when you think about it, Canada went to the Copa America semi-final for the first time in their history. So that's a big accomplishment. You see that with Jonathan David, who has been consistent throughout his career in all actuality.
He's Canada's leading all-time scorer, Jonathan David.
And he's been scoring goals for fun at club level for Lille as well. Always linked to the move away, but it never materializes. There's a running joke about that one. But I think both of those players are formidable. I'm not quite sure if we'll go to Alphonso Davies again. I think Jonathan David will have the bit of a lead on them. But Maria mentioned the criteria. When you think about it, if we're speaking about the club exploits, I think out of those 6 players, I would say that Leon Bailey had the best club season, probably with Santiago Jimenez, who was fantastic, but he was fantastic in the Eredivisie for Feyenoord. Leon Bailey was fantastic in the Premier League, in Europe as well with Aston Villa. So I think Leon Bailey had the best club season. He didn't quite have the best international, time over the time span. As we know, he wasn't a part of the Jamaica squad that went to the Copa America, didn't do all that well at the Gold Cup, but he still has put in a couple of good performances. Was a part of the Jamaica team that beat this Canadian team in November to go to the Nations League semi-finals. So I think that Leon Bailey has a lot of claim, but it's going to be tough. Even someone like Carrasquilla, who I mentioned earlier, I think he's a fantastic player. One of those players that you just love to watch play. Center of midfield, loves to take responsibility of whenever he's getting the ball, dictates tempo, create chances. At any time he puts on a Panama shirt, you can guarantee that he's going to do well. Unfortunately for him, his last time wearing a Panama shirt that we saw was getting a red card against the USA for a really bad challenge against Pulisic. So although he was named Gold Cup Player of the tournament last summer, I think that's where his individual prize will end. I think it's going to be between, for my money at least, it would be between Leon Bailey, Jonathan David and Santiago Jimenez. But maybe the Leon Bailey JFF controversy will work against him. Let's see. But I do think that Leon Bailey is amongst the 3 players that would be favored to get this prize.
Yeah, and you say that, and I was going to, just spend some more time on that point, because fan voting, Lish, is a big part of it, right? The fans come from your country mainly, and of course, you'd have your club supporters. But how much would that work against him when it comes to that aspect of fan voting? And just the fact that This Leon Bailey JFF situation was not only limited to local media, it was making international headlines. So how much do you think it would work against him when it comes to the criteria?
Well, I think that's a sticky one because, well, I would love to hope that the votes wouldn't only be coming from Jamaica for the Jamaican players because the country would be severely outnumbered by the other candidates. But I think how the story has come across in local media as opposed to how it's come across in international media is completely different. Actually, most people that I see generally are taking the side or taking the favor of Leon Bailey in the situation. And because it's pretty often that we see a lot of these star players when they go to their nations that aren't really the big footballing nations. A lot of them have to endure a lot of stuff. When you think about even someone like Didier Drogba, for example, back in the day, he was Emmanuel Adebayor. They were in charge of maybe even stopping wars in their home countries. So often these players have to do a lot. I'm not saying that Leon Bailey had to do any of that, but I think a lot of international fans are sympathetic of what he put forward. So I think the bad feelings really stem from a local base. I'm not quite sure that would affect his voting. And, you know, there's still all the captains in CONCACAF voting, the coaches as well. So I still do think that he has a really good shot.
Yeah, and Copa America is one of the competitions that a lot of people around the world look on at, and he didn't take part in Copa America. That brings that discussion point. What about, because you talk about the local Jamaican fans not having the majority of votes, but these other voters watch Copa, right?
Yeah, you're very right. That's why I brought in Jonathan David still. I think he had a pretty decent tournament. Alphonso Davis had an okay tournament as well. But when you think about the rest of the nominees, Carrasquilla was dumped out in the group stage, had a, you know, as I said, his final action playing for Panama in the tournament was getting a red card. Christian Pulisic didn't make it out of the group stage. Santiago Jimenez was a part of a really poor Mexican team, a Mexican team that did beat Jamaica, but they've sacked their coach since and, you know, really tried to restructure their national team. So his national exploits in the Copa America won't be heralded either. So I think it's Christian Pulisic. He had a really good club season as well, but when you think about it, I think apart from the Canadians, the other four competitors for this prize didn't have a good Copa America for that to, I think, to sway voters away from Leon Bailey.
Yeah, well, so was Pulisic's club season with the AC Milan as good as Leon Bailey's Aston Villa season?
I think Pulisic's club season
Because I'm asking you that because you are projecting Leon Bailey as one of the favourites because of his club season, but you haven't put Pulisic there.
Because I think context is important. I think this AC Milan team, his AC Milan team regressed a bit. Yes, Pulisic had a good individual season, but I think it matters how and when you put up your stats. When you think about the goals that Leon Bailey has scored for Aston Villa, the winners that he has scored, the big performances that he has had, because that's something that comes into the voting as well, because you have to always bear in mind that for many football fans, many spectators of the game generally, they thrive on moments. Pulisic had a very solid season all across the board. It was his best goal-scoring season of his career, actually. But then when
that's why I challenged you on it, because I think that I would mention him among the favourites.
Yes, but I think because of how USA is, I think if Leon Bailey went to the Copa America and Jamaica crashed out like they did, the narrative would be different. Okay. But because Pulisic is the leader of this American team, he scored a fantastic goal against Bolivia, but generally USA were very ineffective in the tournament. That might play against him. The fact that he was playing against Syria and that he doesn't have as many eyes on it like the English Premier League, he didn't get a chance to have his big moments against a Manchester City. Because when you think about it, Leon Bailey scored basically the winner against Manchester City, against Arsenal, the two top teams in the English Premier League over the past couple of seasons. So those moments, I think, would propel him and those moments would keep much fresher in the mind than Pulisic's consistent performances in the Serie A.
Well, we're going to leave it there, Liz. Great to have you discuss the CONCACAF Men's and Women's Player of the Year honours for the season. The shortlist just announced this week by CONCACAF. and the voting goes up until the 2nd of August. So we won't have to wait long to see who will get those awards. As the expert just said, Khadija Shaw is favourite for the women's award, the men's award a lot more competitive. We'll be back with more on the SportsMax Zone after this.